I will never forget one day when I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, why ain't blew up yet? And the Lord said, welcome to the place where visionaries, leaders, and kingdom builders come when you are in the alley, as I help you discover the keys to unlock your next level of clarity, strategy, and confidence. I'm Dr. LaTanya. Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, Dr. LaTanya Moore, here to help you discover the keys, especially when you're in the alley, in between those building phases, and you're ready to unlock your next level. Listen, speaking of levels, I am celebrating just a monumentous occasion, and this occasion really helped me to understand how I just wanted to kind of have a story time, and I just wanted to reflect on something and show you the different stages of building, okay? Really show you those things through my life and through my ministry. So right now, I am celebrating 4 years in ministry. Yes, that's right. 4 years ago, I started a podcast. I had absolutely no idea that I was starting a ministry. I thought that it was going to be me sitting around teaching people how to not be religious and ratchet and how to move into relationship with God. And I had no idea that it would grow into so many more things. I was sitting around a table with some friends from my church, and I kept telling them, I said, I am starting something. And they're like, well, what is it that you're starting? And I'm like, I don't know, but I just feel that God is calling me to start something. Well, just a few weeks later, I began to see myself in a vision. And in this vision, I was actually at a microphone. But this wasn't a microphone where I was, like on stage with the microphone. This was a microphone where I was just sitting there right in front of the microphone. And so in my earthly, fleshly, natural brain, I thought podcast. Like this looks like in the vision that I have a podcast. And because I've been walking around my church specifically saying the same thing over and over and over again, because everybody back then thought I was saved. Okay, they're like, she real saved. Okay, I actually stood out for being too saved. So it was too funny because I kept getting the same questions over and over again about people asking me about my life and about how, had I always been this way, and had, something shifted or changed for me. And I started to realize that, wait a minute, I'm giving the same tips over and over again. And I really loved practical tips. I was not the one who really desired to sit in church all day, listen to somebody hoop and holler, and then come home and have no practical application. Nope. So I was convinced that I would be the one who brought that practical application to everyone around me. Well, I started a podcast, and I had no idea I was starting a ministry, because what began to happen was that people were receiving breakthroughs. People were growing their relationship with God. People were starting to, receive their heavenly language as they worked closely with me. People were having these experiences now with God, and they really admired me as a leader for them. And I was like, oh boy. And I remember my mentor at the time saying to me, you didn't just start a podcast, you started a ministry. And it took me a long time to accept that M word, ministry. I had never seen myself in ministry. I had never seen myself as someone who, was out here talking about God, let alone giving a word or, going to the Bible to do anything. And so to say I started a ministry was like a weight on me, and I did not want to use that word. But the reality was that I was ministering to people, that I was changing hearts and minds, that I was helping people get saved, that I was helping people strengthen their prayer lives, and that I was helping people build true relationship with God. And because of that, they wanted more. They didn't just want the podcast. They wanted coaching. They didn't just want coaching. They wanted to come together as a community. They didn't just want the community, but they wanted to gather and do things. And I enjoyed this because the Lord has always said to me, after me being saved, so not always, but he kept saying to me that I was going to help people build and strengthen their relationship with God. He kept saying that I was going to help them walk in their purpose. And he kept saying that I was going to create and cultivate spaces where people can encounter him. And so I listened, I yielded, and I surrendered to everything God was doing. And I said, God, here I am. And I let it go. But I would be lying if I tell you that this journey has been easy and that it has been some walk in the park. It hasn't at all. It has been tough. There have been a lot of times where I've stayed up, I've worried, I've cried, I've prayed, I've, needed support, I've gotten support. I felt like I was on top of the world. I felt like I was in the valley. Like, there's been so many emotions and things with it. But what I realize is that this is a part of the process. When God calls you to do something, no matter what it is, there's a process and there's a journey that you go on. So I wanted to share 3 things that I want you to really consider based on my lessons learned, based on my experiences, based on the things that God has allowed me to do, right? My community has grown so much. I believe I haven't recorded a podcast episode in a while now. However, I believe my podcast, the last time I checked, was at somewhere around 60,000 downloads. He allowed me to build a community really quickly and in certain places in various areas. However, that community has continued to grow over time, right? And I realized that I had to learn a few things along the way. So I want to pass those to you, especially as it relates to building, okay? Especially as it relates to building. So the first thing that I would say is build community. Build community. A lot of people try to launch something or host something or have something, and you don't have a community to actually bring out to the thing that God has actually called you to do, right? Initially, I had no idea that I was building community, but the more I invited people to Zoom calls in the middle of a pandemic, the more I put out those podcast episodes and told people to meet me on Sunday, so we're going to talk about it. The more I posted so that people can talk about the episode, the more I, hosted events, even virtually, the more I built community. The more people began to know who I was, and I began to know who they were, right? There's so many times that I have prayer calls now, and I'm calling people. I'm like, hey girl, how you doing? I am talking to people. I'm saying, how you doing? I'm saying, I'm asking them about themselves. I'm asking them about the updates and the things that they're doing. Why? Because I've learned them. I listen to them, I follow them, I look for them, I'm checking for you. Yes, I am checking for you. And so because of that, especially if you work with me closely, then I'm really checking for you then, right? So I learned that I had to build community, and that is the way that I feel like I've been successful, because I've had people around me who, might I say, I don't really like to use this term, but it's a thing. They my ride or dies, okay? They will ride for me. Now, here's one thing I had to learn about community, because the Lord checked me real quick. When someone was kind of leaving and transitioning out of my community, and I was sad. Oh my God, I was sad. I had a hard time with that thing. The Lord told me, listen, some people are going to leave you, and it's okay. Their season with you is up. And that's okay. So I had to learn that people will leave, shift, change, and all of that, because God calls people to a season, right, under your voice, a season of leadership under your voice. And it's okay when things begin to shift and change. All right. So build community. That's one of the number one things that I've learned in this process. The second thing that I've learned is that you want to build to last. Build to last. I realized over time now that as I was building only for the now, right? For especially throughout my 2020 year, I was building for the now. All I could see was what was right in front of me. So I had the vision, and I would have the podcast. I had no idea I would have the community. I knew that I would be creating these spaces for people to gather. However, I did not think outside of those things, right? I didn't think, oh, how do I get people to stay with me long term? I didn't think retention. I didn't think, sales, marketing, any of those things. And so there's two sides of this. And the one is to focus on the now. However, you have to build for it to last, right? I heard, I don't know if he's a doctor or not, but his last name is Bronner, the founder or the CEO of Bronner Brothers. He actually said this quote that was so powerful. And I thought, man, I wish I'd heard this 4 years ago. He said, build for a decade, but be and live in the day, right? So you're going to think about that decade, however you're living day by day, but you're going to build so that you last, right? Whatever it is, is going to last. And so I want you to really think about the sustainability of what you are building, the longevity of what you are building. I will never forget one day when I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, why ain't blew up yet? And the Lord said, you never asked me about the longevity or the impact of what I called you to build. Woo. Okay. The Lord said that to me and I thought, oh my goodness. Like I remember saying, okay, I'll get started, but I do not remember really sitting down with God and say, oh, this is how long this is going to last and this is how I need to prepare for the longevity of this thing. And so that is going to be so important to really build to last, okay? And one thing that I've learned in building to last, especially as it relates to ministry, is that things do shift over time. There are some pivots, there are some things that are going to happen. And that just brings me to this kind of side point, is that just because I was building a ministry outside of the four walls, it did not exempt me from the study, the prayer, the requirements of within the four walls. So many people think that you can start to build things outside of the church, right? And it's going to be different. You don't have to, put in the same level of study. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. It requires so much more. And so you have to know that building to last means also building yourself to last as well. And then the last thing that I want to share is really as a lesson learned and a tip for you is I really want you to build even when it's hard. Build when it's hard. There were times, plenty of times, okay, I was like, let me just pack this thing up, tied up with a pretty little bow. Let me go ahead and send it back, return to sender, okay? I don't feel like doing it. I don't want to people today. I ain't peopling because these people are peopling and it's making my people meter go down. And so, or things where, things would happen and I would say, I just don't want to do this anymore. That has happened several times, okay? I still show up with the passion. I still show up with tenacity. I still show up with the stamina. But behind the scenes, I was over here like, these people, no. Baby, when you start to bring on people into that community, you're going to begin to deal with some of the things that they're experiencing. They might even start to experience some of the things that you're experiencing. Why? Because of that connection, right? And especially when you're spirit-led. And so when you build, even in the seasons where you don't feel like building, even in the seasons where it feels hard, you are going to build stamina in the process. Even when I wanted to throw in the towel, I had the stamina to say, all right, let me just take a quick break. Let me take a breather and get back to it, because there are people assigned to my name. There are people assigned to my voice. There are people assigned to my purpose. And because of that, I still have to show up. Woo! I desire to be an example for kingdom excellence. And one thing that happened when I started my ministry and I started my business and I started to see, kingdom people operating in these spaces, right, of marketplace or outside of the church, I realized that they weren't necessarily operating in excellence. And I was like, I don't want that. I don't want my stuff to look like theirs. I don't want that. I believe that God has called us to an excellence. He is the creator. He is the creator. Look, everything he created was good. Okay? It was good. And so because of that, I want my creations to be good. And so I strive to make sure that everything I do for you is good. And not only good, but excellent in the eyes of God, in the eyes of myself, and in your eyes as well. And so those lessons learned are some things that I want to share as I celebrate 4 years in ministry, in businessry, in ministry, in marketplace, and really helping you to build and strengthen your relationship with God, grow in purpose, and cultivating the spaces that God has called me to. Over time, God has really shifted my target. He's really shifted, some things, my goals. And I love that because as I evolve, right, that means that I can help you evolve. And so we're going to that next level. He's really called me to help you discover the keys to unlock your next level. And he's helped me understand that there are 3 main groups of people who I really work with. And those are builders, architects, and developers. Ooh. Anyway, I'm going to tell you so much more about each one of those because I want you to identify which one sounds most like your current season and to help you understand some things that you should be doing while you're in that season. Because one thing I learned is that if I'm in one season, might be planning for the next, but I can't do what someone else in their next season is doing for my now season, right? I might be able to pick up some things and listen and learn and prepare. However, sometimes you got to stick right within your season and do what God is calling you to do there first. Okay? Listen, I'm so excited that you're on this journey with me. I'm so excited that I get the opportunity to share with you, to steward you, and to really build community with you. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. It's a bunch of visionaries, builders, okay, and leaders over here, and we're just moving into our next levels with confidence, with strategy, and with clarity. And I believe that this video is just one of many that will come of stories and testimonials that lead to me sharing with you what God has done in my life so that you know he can do it in yours too. Okay, let's go. Remember, you got the keys. Let's go.